Oh my God.
OMG.
Episode number 3.
You know what's funny? I know we said last week that we didn't think we'd get to episode 2. I can't really believe we got to episode 3.
By the way, I know you guys probably realize this, that we record a little bit ahead of time, obviously to give us time to edit and whatnot. And so we just dropped episode 1.
Yes.
Crystal.
I know.
Crystal.
My mind is blown.
Insane. Y'all came through.
Yo, we're so dope.
I freaking love it, dude. I honestly thought, and I'm being completely honest, no bullshit here, right? I thought that 30 to like 50 listens would be ideal. Like that was my goal.
Oh,
if
yeah.
we could hit like in that range, I feel like cool. Like that's 30 or 50 people like that listen.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell them how many people tune in from YouTube, Google Podcasts, and Spotify? And
we had over 200 listens.
Freaking insane.
That is so crazy.
Dude, that was awesome. Oh my God. So I have to tell you something too before I forget.
Yes.
So Annabelle, you know, I told you she had her first day of school.
Oh my God.
So we've been doing
the
virtual, at home learning thing. But they finally started letting some kids go back to school. So Annabelle was one of the first kids that was able to go back.
Yes.
And we go and we drop her off. And, before that, you always see, it's so weird being on an elementary school campus, right? Mm-hmm. They were in preschool, but it was more of like a daycare setting. So this was like completely different. Like
this is like real school.
I was that mom. Like I am the mom that's sitting
crazy
in the drop-off line. Like it's kind of like just the weirdest thing in the world. Well, I was thinking to myself, like, do you think she's going to cry? Do I think I'm going to cry? Like, how is it going to be like? Like, what is it going to be like? Of course, Annabelle, she's like your spirit animal.
If anybody who haven't met Miss Annabelle Lee, she is her Nina Crystal reincarnated 100%. If you ever wondered what I was like as a kid, Annabelle Lee is it.
Exactly. And so she could not jump out of the car fast enough. She was so excited. And I was okay. You know what it was? I was excited because I knew how bad she wanted to go back to school.
She had been asking for it for a couple weeks.
For forever. So for me, it was more excitement. But Vivian.
Yeah, she was kind of like the wild card there. I was not expecting her reaction. If you want to tell them how she reacted.
She legitimately bawled her eyes out. But not like that bratty cry. Like,
yeah. She was hurting.
She was like, you can feel her heart break. I sent a video to like the family just because it was just the saddest thing ever. And I just made me realize like they do everything together. Like they went to school together before. Mm-hmm. They do cheerleading together. They do ballet together. We obviously they share a room together.
They're only 18 months apart.
Yeah, they're so close. And so
she was like, Cease. That's what she calls Annabelle. She calls her Cease. She goes, Cease, where's Cease?
Yeah, it was the saddest thing ever, you guys. Even though at that moment it made me really sad as a mom to see my baby hurting. And they're going to have a lot of things in life that they're going to have to do separately. It kind of reminded me a lot of me and you.
Oh my God. We were the same way.
Because we're 20-something months apart?
We're 22 months apart, yeah.
22 months apart, and we did almost everything together.
Yep.
Even if we weren't on like the same team, we still played softball at the same time. We still played soccer at the same time. We went to school together. And so it made me excited for them to I know that
those memories that are coming. They don't realize it yet, but those memories that are coming.
Yes. Well, I just wanted to give you guys that little spiel because I'm sure some of you guys who have kids that are in school, or especially that first year, like kindergarten or pre-K or whatever. Oh my God. I'm sure you guys can feel my mama heart just hurt a little bit. So anyways, for those that are here for the first time, I am Bianca. I'm a work-at-home mom, and I have 2 little girls.
And I'm Crystal. I'm a stay-at-home mom to 2 littles. And we're back again with another episode of Messy Buns and Coffee Runs.
Love it. This is a no bullshit girl talk through all things mamahood lifestyle, where there's a space for everybody. By
the way.
Remember last when I was... Sorry. We recorded like 30 minutes. I know, that's what I was like, make sure it's good.
Okay, speaking of school.
Oh yeah.
Right now we're just at the park letting our kids play because every Tuesday, I said, Tuesdays are for the cousins.
Love it.
The park we went to is so nice. The one that was right next to the school, and this is right next to your house.
Yeah, it's really close, and they have parks kind of like plopped all over each neighborhood. It's awesome.
So I finally have the question I want to ask you.
Okay.
Was moving to zone your kid for the better school worth it? For those that don't know.
Yeah, maybe we should give a little background.
Yeah. Bianca had bought a house, 2 years ago?
Yeah.
I want to say like 2 years ago when she bought the house. I guess they were just, so excited to purchase their first home and they didn't realize that one of the things you need to tip of the day know when you're looking for a home is look at the schools that you're zoned for.
Yes. Oh my God.
So
we
important.
Should talk about this more in depth later, but yes, absolutely. Look
so
into that.
The schools that they were zoned for were just not the best schools.
Not only not the best. Okay. It was
I'm trying to be nice.
No. Let's be real here, right? There are like 6,300 schools in California, and I Googled all of this. And that school was rated like 62 or 6,100.
Oh my God.
It was like one of the worst elementary schools in the state. Now, we live in Oceanside. Obviously, there's not like, the school district in general is not great.
Mm-hmm.
But when we bought the house, Annabelle was barely 3. And honestly, that wasn't even on our minds at all. We were looking
you're just excited.
And like you guys know, Ethan's in the military. So we knew that this home would never be forever home. So when we were looking at buying a house, we were looking at investment property, right? We wanted a cheap house, something we can flip and easy to rent out later. So we found this house. We loved it. We flipped it. It was beautiful. We got to redo it exactly the way we wanted.
It was gorgeous.
I still love that house so much. But when it came time to doing Annabelle's IEP, they asked, I had to fill out a bunch of paperwork. And part of it was you had to write down the school that you're zoned for. And then I did my research on it. And that's kind of how it started coming about. And because of COVID, it really kind of screwed things up for us because we were hoping that, do people do school transfers all the time?
Yeah. Oh, school transfers, like when you can move your kid.
School of choice.
School of choice, yeah. When you can move your kid from one school that you're housed or zoned for to another school, like a better school, but that's not necessarily in your space.
Yeah. And so when it came down to it, I asked them, could we do that? And they were like, and of course, when she was ready to go to school, this is when COVID hit. Mm-hmm. And so she told us we're not doing that right now, especially for the preschool students, because we're trying to keep everybody, kind of like not overpacking the good schools, right?
Right.
And my heart just sank to my stomach because, private schools are expensive. They're
crazy expensive.
Yeah, we were paying out of pocket for the girls' preschool.
Shit.
Which was like $500 a month, maybe a little bit more.
Yeah.
But that was for both girls. And for 2 days a week, 2 half days. And it was great. That's like the cheapest I could find. And it was on base. So it was a good area. I know it was safe. And I don't know. I just really loved the classroom was clean and beautiful. I toured so many preschools. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah.
But I loved it. And so we sent them there. And that to us was like, we could afford to send them there. But to afford to send a kid, especially like elementary school, it is so expensive.
And that doesn't even include, that's just tuition.
Yeah.
Doesn't include uniform, iPad, textbooks, fundraisers, lunch. Oh my God.
Yes. And so we decided, I think our best option would be to move and to guarantee that she and her sister, because Vivian is, even though they're 18 months apart, in like school years, they're only 1 year apart. So Annabelle will be in first grade, Viv will be in kinder. And, when the time comes.
Yeah.
But we also didn't want to like risk Vivian not being able to get the school of choice. And even then, Crystal, our school of choices that were like within a decent amount of like driving time were not good.
Yeah.
Because Oceanside Unified is not good.
The only thing left to do is to move into a better zone, like a neighborhood for the better zone school.
Yeah. And so the only there's like 3 really decent elementary schools in Oceanside Unified. And 2 of them happened to be on base. So we ended up moving back on base. And let me tell you, I was really hesitant because we lived on base for so long.
Yeah.
So I was really hesitant to move back. But to be honest with you, like you were here for Halloween.
Yeah.
The neighborhood is just so...
You can't beat the kind of community friendly. You had over here on this block.
Like even last year for Halloween, we went trick-or-treating on base. But then we were going to trick-or-treat more in our neighborhood. And Crystal, there was not one trick-or-treater in 2 hours. And not one person even handing out candy. The block was black, like just dark. No lights were on, nothing.
Fun.
And
it's not where you want your kids to be.
Yeah, and we loved our neighbors. And it was a great place to live for that little time we lived there. And we still own it. So, we still have it. But it's nice being able to, after dinner, let the kids play outside and ride their bikes with the friends.
Yeah, they're neighborhood kids.
Walk to the park, and you saw it today. We went to the park,
really
and there's
safe.
So many kids.
Like yeah, exactly. That's exactly what I mean. Like that park was beautiful. There was a ton of freaking kids. It was safe. Everybody there was really nice. You feel like you could trust the small little area that you're in, which is why I wanted to ask you that question of, is it like ultimately was it worth it to move to get your daughter zoned into, because in turn, right, you're not just zoned into a better school, but you're zoned into a better neighborhood where there's more kid friendly and more kids that are like less at crime. Her pace.
Yeah, and less crime too. I absolutely 100% do not regret my decision. Yeah. I kind of struggled with it at first. It was super hard to coming to terms with the fact that I'm moving out of my first home.
Yeah.
It's a good investment at the end of the day, which is what it always was going to be.
Right.
So I 100% do not regret it. And even now, her teacher's amazing. All the students are amazing. I love the school. The campus is beautiful, whereas the other one looked like a jail.
Oh my God, I know.
Remember that? You didn't even know it was an elementary school.
I didn't. I thought it was like a park, because right next to a big ass park.
Yeah.
A park, I thought it was like, I don't know, like a center, like one of those youth centers.
Center.
Yeah. So I guess I wanted to like squeeze in or like transition into this. Do you feel now that you're in this better neighborhood, right? Like, which in turn has a ton of benefits, right? You have better schools, kids her age, people who are more at your pace in the sense of like they're kid friendly. They take their kids to do things and they let their kids play outside. Does it make you feel a little out of place given, we're just going to say like your demographic? You guys are a young couple.
Does it make
Latinas,
me feel out of place being on base or off base?
On base, or specifically in the neighborhood that you're in
right now?
Yeah.
So I feel like being on base versus when we lived off base, two very different worlds, right? Age-wise, I'm about the same as a lot of these people here. I'm a little bit younger, but still like within the same age range. There's a lot of, the military's filled with, so many different, the demographic is huge. You just have a wide range
of people
because, I have people from all over the country that are living here. I know they're from Illinois. Next door neighbors are from Ohio, I think. Across the street, there's two from Texas. Like, they're from everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm from California. Ethan's from Chicago. So even though a lot of because I feel like where you grew up really changes who you are as a person and whatnot.
Totally.
I feel like we all have that common ground of our, we all live this type of lifestyle and we all understand each other and we get each other. It kind of brings me to our main topic, right?
Yeah.
Feeling out of place as a mother.
Okay. Does it make it easier to feel not so out of place here for what you feel is your demographic, right? Because it's like you said, you have that common ground that everybody's living this lifestyle. It's the military.
Yeah.
And therefore, there really is no like difference in socioeconomic status from you living here to the person down the street.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
and we all know how much everyone makes.
Yeah, exactly.
It's on the internet.
It's all the same. Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's what I want to know. Okay.
I would say no. It doesn't make me feel, and for those that don't know too, all the housing on a military base, they're all zoned by rank. So that the people living next to you, we all kind of make the same amount-ish, right? Yeah. It doesn't ever make me feel different though, and I don't think it ever has. For example, we lived in San Clemente on base.
Beautiful when you
loved living over there.
Love when you lived over there.
We lived on base in San Clemente, but obviously we did everything off base. All of the events and the parks and the swimming, everything we did off base. For those that don't know, Orange County, especially San Clemente specifically, like you need to make a certain amount of money to live there. There are people, the homes are a minimum like $1 million homes.
Yeah, they're gorgeous.
You can't find a condo for under $700,000.
You know what? Like you go to different neighborhoods, and I remember you telling me one time you took Annabelle to the park, and you were in San Clemente, which we know is a pretty affluent neighborhood, and you were listening just the conversations that the moms are having about
their nannies,
how much they were going to pay their nannies for their vacation.
Yes, and so even when I lived there, though, I never felt, I guess, lower than.
Really?
Never did. Mind you, a little bit of background. I'm sure most of you guys know this by now, but I am a photographer. When I lived in San Clemente is when I began my photography business. So I was used to working with these people who made a decent living.
Yeah.
And I work with so many different types of people. I work with people in the military. I work with people, different states.
All on the spectrum.
Everything. And I feel like I'm a lot like my dad in the aspect of like, especially when it comes to like business, I can really sell myself. I can really talk to people. Whenever I have a camera in my hand, I turn into a different human being. It's crazy. But anyways, when we lived in San Clemente, I found that I never felt less than.
That is so crazy to me.
Even if we want to talk about race, like there's, a lot of like white women who would bring their babies out, and there was a lot of mostly Hispanic nannies, and that's just the God honest truth.
Yeah.
If they weren't Hispanic,
this is no bullshit. We're going to be no bullshit.
If they weren't Hispanic or older, they were usually like teenagers that were doing it, but that were like nannying. And I never felt that way. I always felt like I could talk to any of them. Like we could be like, if our kids were playing together, I could sit there and just be like, oh, so how old's your daughter? And we can just talk forever.
That is insane.
And I feel like the reason why I think you and mom and all them still have this like version of me that I hate people and that I don't like to talk to people. And don't get me wrong, I still am not I'm not an extroverted person, but I do like to have conversations with people. I feel like I can be easy to talk to.
Yeah.
It
doesn't seem like it, but it's true. You are I would say a very approachable person. Like you're never somebody who's going to stick your nose out to conversation. You would never be standoffish.
Yeah. And I can have a conversation with
I don't
anybody.
think anybody's ever accused you of being standoffish.
Yeah.
Once they know you.
Yeah. And so that never bugs me. So I can honestly say that I've never felt less than, whether it's somebody who has more money or less money than me, or somebody who is, you know, person of color, Hispanic, or a white person. I've never felt a difference. I truly can go anywhere with my kids and me never feel inferior.
Really? Mm-hmm. We grew up in the same house.
Yeah.
Yet we have completely different feelings about this.
Views are very different. And so I kind of want to bring up the sand and straw.
Yeah. Let's talk about the sand and straw because that's what's going to bring us into what we're talking about today.
I have a couple questions for you, but let me give everybody like a background. So we went to Sand and Straw. Sand and Straw is a really cute place in Vista that if you guys have not gone yet, you have to. It's so cute.
It's adorable.
They do like a sing along with the kids. It's all outdoors. You can pet the animals. It's a really pretty place just to sit down and even eat some lunch or whatever. It's a really cute place. And my kids love going there because they do like a 30-minute sing along with books and the guitar. And
it was nice.
There's just a bunch of kids there. And I invited Crystal to come down on Tuesday to come with us and you know, just join us and have a fun Tuesday with the cousins. And Julio took the kids to the petting zoo part, and me and you decided to stay up at the little patio area with
the sitting
Camila.
area, yeah.
And you asked me something. What did you ask me?
Oh my God. Really gonna y'all be really nice because I'm really about to put myself out there.
You guys, just to preface this.
Yeah.
This is a conversation. Like, we are the type of podcast that is going to give you the real nitty gritty. Like we said before, this is not a politically correct podcast.
Yeah, so we're going to be honest here.
If your opinions are very, very different, or you maybe feel, I don't know, offended.
People can feel very strongly about this and what we're about to talk about. So if
we don't want you to feel offended.
Yeah, don't feel offended. But as you're going to see we have two very different opinions on this anyways. Just know that everybody feels different, and that's okay.
Yeah. And I think this is a really good topic,
learning.
You know, racism's been a huge deal in our country. Like a personal insight.
Yeah, if you wanted to have a real conversation with somebody, two people of color, and get two very different experiences, you're going to get it right now. So I asked Bianca because, frankly, there was nothing but white moms there with their kids. And I asked her, do you ever feel out of place being in a place like this, doing an outing with your kids when there's nothing but white moms? And what did you say?
I said 90% of the time when we do outings, it's mostly filled with white women. And no, I never feel out of place. I never feel like I knew the last week before that I was talking to the lady that was sitting next to me. I think her husband worked in like some computer engineering thing. And she asked me where I lived. I told her I lived on base. And she said that she lived in like the Leucadia part of Carlsbad. And that's a rich area. Yeah. So I knew right away, like her husband makes money.
Yeah.
And no, I never felt at any point like she looked down on me because of my husband, you know, is in the military and doesn't make that much money, or that I was less than her because I was Hispanic. I never felt that way. Not saying it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that the way I look at it and the way I look at things is I've learned to look at things black and white, where it's just, she said this, that's all it is. She's not looking into it anymore.
And reading into anything anymore.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
That is what it is. Like, cool, she says she's from Leucadia. That's awesome. Good for you. You must have a beautiful home. And then we move on with the conversation.
So when we got to talking about that conversation, because I remember Bianca looked at me like, just kind of like, what the hell are you asking?
I was very
shocked.
My jaw dropped.
Yeah, like, literally. You like almost looked like, why are you asking me that?
Yeah, like that's a weird question to ask.
So something that I've come to learn is that I have a little bit of an inferiority complex. It's something that I've worked through. I've come to terms with it. Those who don't know, I've gone to therapy, and this is something that I've come to learn this is something I've come to terms with, like on realizing this is like a little bit of a flaw in myself. And it comes from a place of low self-esteem, which is interesting enough because I know that's part of what shocked you when I asked that question.
Yeah.
You've always said that you've seen me as somebody who's had a great amount of confidence. And that's just frankly not the case.
Can I ask you something real quick? And I hate to butt in, but did you feel this way before you had Ben? Because you were always really pretty and tiny and whatnot. Did you feel this way like before?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Skinny, not skinny, pretty, not pretty. Okay. I've always had this complex. I just didn't know what it was.
Got it.
So for me, it specifically surfaced more though when I became a mom. I feel like setting the scene here, right? We live in Southern California. There's a ton of Mexican culture around us. And if you know anything about the Latino culture, that's just not a thing. Taking your kids on outings, quote unquote, is just kind of like not a thing you do unless it's taking your kid to the park.
People would call that
white people shit. Yeah, we've had, all the jokes and we poked our fun at the unseasoned chicken or whatever that we've the unseasoned, white people don't season their chicken.
I've never heard that saying before.
That's like a whole thing on the internet right now about the unseasoned chicken.
Interesting.
Yes. Okay, anyway.
Not chicken. Oops. I gotta be seasoning my chicken apparently.
You don't season your chicken?
I put like salt and pepper. Does that count?
No, that's the whole point.
What do you put on your chicken?
I put garlic powder, onion powder, paprika.
Damn, fancy.
I go all out when I season my food.
Wow, interesting. So I don't cook often though. So
I guess. So essentially, that's just like not a thing, right? You take your kids out to the park, but and
even then that's not.
Yeah, even then it's just not a thing. You kind of like hang out in your house or whatever. You go to your cousin's house or you go to daycare.
That's so right because I don't ever remember like our cousins or like my Hispanic friends doing outings like that.
Like even now, right? As moms, like I can attest to more than one mom that does this, but I know you and I do this where we kind of like look around. Right now it's been hard because of COVID, but you look around and you see what kind of things they have for kids available, like a Barnes and Noble's reading, or like you take your kids to the farms or whatever. Just looking around, like there's a botanical barn that finally opened up near our house that I want to take the kids to. Yeah, in South Bay.
That sounds fun.
So like different things like this, right? So because it's kind of like a little out of the norm, you grow up hearing that saying, and no one please take offenses because we're just being real here.
This is just talking about our culture and how we grew up.
Yeah, but you hear a lot of like, that's white people shit. Why are you doing that with your kids? That's white people shit. Like,
and here's my thing about that comment.
I hate that comment.
I hate that comment because you know what? Why is it that it almost makes it seem like only white people are capable of being these types of mothers?
Yes, thank you. Or like it's the standard.
Yeah.
And we are not the standard.
Yeah.
You can't meet that standard, so why would you do it? So I feel a little out of place. Like I told you about, I told Julio about this recently, but I told you when we were talking about the Santa John, reflecting on that conversation, I felt so less than, like this like slight inferior feeling came about me. Like I need to watch my kids and how they behave a little bit more.
I need to look and
act a certain way. I need to make sure I'm not speaking like quote unquote ghetto. Even when I joke, like sometimes I speak like ratchet, but I'm just joking. But I need to make sure I don't speak that way because I don't want them. And you know what it is? And a lot of it, I really had time to reflect on this. And I realized not only do I feel a little inferior, but I also am so afraid that it will affect my kids and how other people play with my kids. So for instance, I feel in my mind, right? Like, okay, I'll give you a scenario. If I were to take, there's a Barnes & Noble reading. They have every Saturday at 11 o'clock, they have like the kids' story time or whatever. I used to love taking Ben to that, or pre-COVID. And the first thing I do, and it's just like an automatic thing, I don't even want to do it, but my brain just does it. I scan to see how many other people of color in the room.
Really?
Yeah. And I'll go as far as to even like text my husband if like he's not with me. Yeah, I would text him and be like,
Crystal.
Yeah, I'd be like, honey, we're the only brown people here, and he'd be like, okay.
Yeah, like.
So, and then I feel like I almost have to be on my best behavior because I don't want me and people who don't know me, right, taking this as a joke, thinking I'm actually super ratchet, and then they'll like tell their kids not to play with my kids.
But what would you think is the main reason, besides maybe you feeling self-conscious about yourself? Do you think it's a physical thing, like just because you clearly look Mexican? People automatically look down on you?
The judging, yes. Okay, so I think part of it has to do, I think the overwhelming majority has to. I'm a very sensitive person as it is. If people don't know me, I'm just what you would call a highly sensitive person. And I feel like this is like my own version of how I've internalized certain aspects of our culture. So for instance, our parents are immigrants. right? And we're still very much under that umbrella. We have that unique experience of being a little bit more Americanized, but having immigrant parents. That's a whole other thing we can get into another time. But I feel like we still have plenty of that old world in us, like that old country in us, where it's kind of like you come to America because, or your family comes to America. They struggle to get here.
This American dream.
For this American dream. And what is the American dream? It's to achieve what white people have, because white people are in America. And you want to own a home? They own homes. You want to move into their neighborhoods because they're more affluent? That's where you want to be.
Country club.
Yes,
picture.
that country club
like when you
picture.
Think of a country club family, what do they look like?
You think of white people. And that's just, so I've always felt like that's the goal that you want to attain. That's what you want to reach for your kids, is you want to have them move into better neighborhoods, move into better schools, just like we're talking about how you move to Zone Annabelle to a better school. Mm-hmm. And you will probably find, if maybe not on base, because on base it's a little bit of a different world.
Very diverse.
Yes. But if, like, for instance, where we live right now, the school that we're zoned for.
We lived before.
Oh, yeah. And these are the things that, like, it makes me more hyper aware of how dark I am. Because you can't mistake it that I'm ethnic,
no,
right?
You're not white.
So I guess that's always made me feel like less than. This is something that I've had to come to terms with on my own, that I have this complex. And it has made me feel extremely I can feel extremely uncomfortable. And it's nothing that they do. It's nothing that anybody specifically does to me. It's just something that I'm internally struggling with. It's not the fact that any white person has ever done this to me.
Exactly.
I mean, have I experienced my own fair racism? Absolutely.
Oh my God, yeah. Remember Tiffany's in Hawaii?
Tiffany's in Hawaii, where that lady wouldn't serve us because she swore we weren't going to spend anything. Anyways.
Like, pass us off to so many people.
Yeah, that was freaking ridiculous. But okay, I'm going to bring you to this story. There's this there was this mom group that I had joined that was like literally right down the street from where we lived. And it was a workout group. And
those are so cute. I've always wanted to do one.
Great women.
I'm just lazy.
Perfect example of how it's not what they're specifically doing. This is, for at least just in my experience, it's an internal thing. It's suffering from low self-esteem. I joined the group, right? Because I was like, oh my God, I'd love to be able to like work out. So I joined the group, and the group is overwhelmingly white. I think I was the only brown one in this specific group. Mm-hmm. But the women were nothing. The people who owned it, the coach and the person who owned it, they were nothing but welcoming. They were sweet to me. They were so incredibly nice and made me feel so welcome, but I could not fight that feeling. So to put it in context, right? You're probably thinking like, they're so nice, so what's the problem? It's this internal conflict that I have. Just to put it into context, right? Let's say I was in a rush. Because I was doing this group while I was still in school and working and trying to work out. If I was coming straight from work and the group started at 5:30, I got off of work at 5, I would rush home, and most people would just throw on the first thing that they see. Yeah. Right? Maybe you're wearing hot pink pants with a freaking turquoise shirt.
Yeah. Care about what you look like.
Exactly. Yellow ass shoes or whatever. I don't freaking know. It's to paint the ridiculousness, okay? Sometimes we look crazy.
Got it.
And I found myself, anytime that I had to go to this group, I wouldn't dress like that. I had to lay out my outfit because I was afraid that if I showed up like that, they would look at me like I was ratchet. And therefore, it would reflect like that on my kid, and that they wouldn't want their kids to play with my kids.
It is a crazy thing.
Isn't it? It's like insane.
Because I feel like you're kind of giving us an insight on like how your mind works.
Yeah.
And it's just so crazy how like we are born and like raised in the same freaking household.
And you don't feel that way.
But do you know what's funny is now that I'm looking back on this, I moved out of the house so much earlier than you did.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so I think I was able to come to certain conclusions about life sooner, maybe.
That's probably exactly what it is. You lived in a different bubble. You got thrown into diversity very quickly.
Maybe that's why, but I honestly can sit here and say I've never... Obviously, besides a few times we have experienced feeling, like the Hawaii thing.
But that's like stuff that's directly done to you.
Yeah, I've never can say that I've gone to like a park where like, we do so many outings. And I mean, we do a lot of outings.
Yeah, you are the outing queen.
Yeah. We've done so many and I've never experienced that.
Yeah.
Ever.
It seems like I've done a ton of research on it because I'm just so curious about learning about it. And a lot of it has to do with having chronic low self-esteem, which is something that I'd be proud to say that I'm working on greatly. It's been debilitating in the sense of like, I feel like that's also part of the reason why I've never been able to stick up for myself. Okay, for instance, the Ruby story about Ruby getting out. I'll tell them what it is. And our dog got out, but we hadn't realized it. And when my husband got off work, we found out that the dog was missing. Fast forward to later, we find out that our neighbor has a dog, a neighbor who's literally on the other side of the street of us. And when we get there, I show up with my 2 kids. We just walked there because it's literally around the corner to pick up the dog. And it was an accident. She had a collar. Everything was fine. She was perfectly fine. I noticed that our neighbors, and they were white, they were giving us kind of a hard time. Well, finally, towards the end of the conversation, I noticed my husband's getting a little like, I could start seeing him standing up a little taller, like he's getting a little irritated by the way they're speaking to us. And by the end of the conversation, we're getting ready to leave because I was like, we have to get our kids to bed. Thanks for watching our dog. Sorry for the inconvenience. The lady turned around and she goes, well, I hope we taught you guys a lesson.
Ew.
Yeah. And my husband was ready to just go off. And I right away shut it down, and I found myself apologizing to the lady because
you didn't want the confrontation.
I didn't want the confrontation because why? I didn't want her to think I was like ratchet or something because I wanted to, but every part of me, every fiber of my being wanted to be like, excuse me, what do you mean by that? Teach us a lesson? Who do you think you're talking to?
Yeah.
Like, calm down. Yeah, like, I'm not your child. So I feel like that's the day that I kind of started coming to terms because I remember Julio was pissed. He was like, what?
He was ready to go off.
Yeah. So when we're walking away, he's like, is everything okay? Like, what happened there? You just shut down. And that's the day I kind of let everything out and told him. I brought up the fitness group thing with the moms about how I feel when I do these outings with the kids, about how I scan the room or whatever, how I'm just hyper aware of the color of my skin. And that's the day I decided to start doing things to get better. And this is when I started diving into the research, and I, seen it there so I could fix it, because that brings us to exactly what we want people to take away from this today, is that how I'm going to change that. And how, if you're anybody out there feeling the same way, I'm giving you, this is your sign from whoever you believe in, that it's time to change that. And there's something I come to realize a lot when it comes to having kids specifically is I never, and not while I'm fucking alive, will my kids ever feel inferior to anybody else. And they're going to be dark, and they're going to have brown hair and brown eyes, and my kids are going to be bilingual. And I want them to be aware of their differences because we're trying to preserve their culture. But I never want my kids to grow up in a world where they feel like because they are different, that equals inferior. It just equals different.
Yeah.
So that has to come about by me bringing changes to myself. I no longer will talk bad about myself in front of my kids, even though they can't understand right now, but they understand.
More on the positive.
Yes. Building up my kids' self-esteem, building up their confidence. Mm-hmm. That is the freaking key.
One thing I wanted to add real quick before we kind of close in on this topic that I wanted to talk about, how you feel like you cannot fit in with certain moms because you think that they're thinking a certain way of you, right?
Yeah, totally.
And you know what's funny? And this kind of goes to show you this may not have anything to do with race completely. I mean, sure, of course, most of it does, but
for me, it's more for you, self-esteem than anything.
Yeah. For me, though, and I'm just realizing this, is a lot of my friends are not Hispanic.
They're white. And all of my friends are Latina.
And do you know why I think that way? Because just like we feel like other people judge us from different races. I feel like Hispanics judge me the most.
Because you don't speak Spanish.
Because I don't speak Spanish. Well, I speak it, but I sound stupid when I do. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do that to myself. My fucking grammar sucks, dude.
Yeah, I have trouble conjugating the gender.
Conjugating, that's such a big word.
Oh my God.
But,
bitch.
But I honestly feel like being around other Hispanics is actually harder for me because I'm expected to speak Spanish, and they will talk in English/Spanish Spanglish, right?
Yeah.
And while I understand Spanish 100% of the time, I can almost talk to anybody with any accent or however fast they talk, and I can understand you. I could speak it back if I wanted to, but I don't want to because mostly if I did speak it back, they would make fun of me because I don't speak it the proper way. I don't speak it well enough. And that's kind of why I feel just as you may feel that way towards other races, I feel that from our race.
Yeah.
I feel that 100% from other Hispanics.
I was going to say.
I'm like the whitewashed Mexican, apparently, even though.
I feel the exact same way, so I guess I'm just one fucked up person who doesn't know where the fuck I belong.
Just don't belong anymore.
Just don't fucking belong anywhere. But I feel the same. I feel like I felt the exact same way. Actually, when I met Julio, I felt it was the height of the way I felt because my husband is Mexican to the roots, right? So because my Spanish isn't great, I sound funky when I say we were made fun of a ton growing up for the way we spoke Spanish. Yeah. We're more Americanized than, because, I mean, there's like reasons for it, right? But people can't fathom the fact that we have two parents that weren't even born in the U.S.
That were like first language was Spanish.
Yeah, first language Spanish, learned English when they got here, and yet we can't fucking speak it for shit.
Yeah, but they never spoke it to us, so
we were never, no.
I'm going to blame
Spanish,
them for that?
Yeah, Spanish was never spoken in our home.
Okay, like the reason why we don't cook like traditional, like
Mexican food.
We had to learn how to cook these things on YouTube and whatnot.
Till Julio and I got together and we moved out and got our own place. Julio obviously grew up very like rice and beans, tortillas, and that's it. You know what I mean? So for me, it's like, oh, I know how to make spaghetti.
Yeah, I mean, I can make badass
I can make spaghetti. Yeah, you want me to make meatloaf, mashed potatoes, some veggies on the side? I didn't realize how Americanized we were.
Yeah. So just like Crystal, my husband also is Mexican AF, right? He's super Mexican. So, for example, when his parents came down to help us fix and renovate the house, his mom was here for 2 weeks, and this woman cooked every single meal. There was no takeout.
Yeah.
And every meal was Mexican. Crystal, when I tell you, for a month, if Ethan even brought up the idea of cooking Mexican food, I'm like, you're fucking crazy. I'm done with the Mexican food. But so that's how he grew up. So, you know what's funny is Ethan tells me that he wants to do like a Friendsgiving.
Yeah.
And he tells me he wants to invite like these two families that are stationed here at Pendleton too that he met, or these two guys. But I didn't meet them over FaceTime, but he talks to them, like they'll be in the same vicinity and they'll be like sharing food while he's on Liberty. Uh-huh. Ethan only speaks Spanish to them.
Yeah, okay.
And now I'm really freaking nervous. Like I almost wanted to say no, let's not
Can we do it at your house instead?
Yeah, just because
take the pressure off.
What if like, okay, like, you know what I hate? When you go into, like, a grocery store or, like, when you want to get, like, carne asada or something.
Yeah. Oh, my God, don't ask me to order the meat. Times I have to, like, call my husband and text him and say exactly like, how do I say it. Text it to me so I can read it.
Oh, Crystal.
See, but here's the thing, right? You feel that way, I feel that way, which is why I feel like we were so obsessed, like diving deep into psychology here, right? Why we were so obsessed with Selena growing up, because she was the dad says it, you're not American enough for the Americans, but you're not Mexican enough for the Mexicans. Mm-hmm. I feel like we were like so much like Selena, right? Yeah. So when Julio and I decided to start having kids, it obviously is crazy important for Julio. I mean,
that they're
bilingual. And that they're immersed in their culture. And so obviously I've learned to cook a ton of Mexican dishes, which I love. Now I barely cook anything that's not Mexican, right? Now I will say this. The way you feel about white people, right? Where you're just like, I have no problem with myself. Yeah. It is what it is. I'm brown. I feel that way, but towards our own people, in the sense of like, you can't tell me I'm any less Mexican than you because I'm proud of who I am.
Okay.
My kids 100% will be immersed in their culture.
Yeah, I'm doing my best.
Don't ever make fun of me because my accent sounds funny, because you know what? At least I'm trying.
Yeah.
Don't make fun of my kids because at least they're trying.
I know. Have you heard Annabelle speak Spanish?
I love it when she goes,
Spanish. Mass? I want mass.
But she's already a step ahead on someone who isn't bothering to teach their kids, because it is hard to try to raise bilingual kids. And that's a totally different subject.
That's a whole other subject.
But now I'm working on the confidence to also feel that way, but towards people of a different race. Like, I'm not different.
I feel like we're exact opposite when it comes to these things.
But the confidence is growing. And I'm very proud of myself for doing it, because like I said, refuse my kids to grow up in a world where they ever feel less than because of who they are.
Yeah.
And that's never going to be the case.
And you know what? I want to end this topic with this. At the end of the day, I think that we need to be able to distinguish the difference between somebody's judging me because they're just a judgmental person.
Yep.
And this person's judging me because they're white. Those are two different, very different things.
And know the difference. Make sure you look internally as well. Because you're going to find out some of the complexes that you have as people will come from your own self-esteem, your own like level of confidence.
And I will say this too. Our generation and the next generation, I think, are making such a difference in this world.
Bringing that barrier and opening it up.
With just getting rid of racism, getting rid of the freaking idea of
one is better than the other.
And this person's a minority and we're the,
Yes.
I am so like proud of our generation for out there.
Cue
You
the
see,
slow clap.
like even the Black Lives Matter stuff. Like you don't see just Black people out there. Freaking
exactly.
You see everybody out there. Like no, we're all in this together. And I feel like this is the most important thing that you can take from this podcast.
Embrace your differences. That make you unique.
Embrace your culture and learn to embrace other cultures.
Yes, exactly. Everybody is deserving of respect. Want for my kids. I want them to be confident in themselves. I want them to have good self-esteem, a good opinion of self, to the point where, hey, people are different. You know, Susie's mom probably makes casserole. My mom makes whatever. And then someone else's mom makes something else.
And embrace the culture.
And then, you know what? Let's all have a potluck and I'll try each other's freaking food.
Yes,
but it does not say that one person is better than the other. And we are, like you said, our generation is doing such a better job at doing this. And I will say this before we get into some tea time. Everyone is deserving of feeling like they belong.
And that just
I'm going to feed you. Bring your kids to my house. I'll feed them.
I love that just goes to show you that we're all work in progress. I think that was such a good topic to touch on because I feel like a lot can relate. Absolutely. I would love to hear your guys' thoughts, and I hope no one gets upset by this episode. It is a little bit more, I guess, controversial.
Yeah, race is always a hot button topic.
But again, I mean, everyone's allowed to have their opinions and think a certain way, and I think as long as we're respectful of other cultures, we can have a conversation, right? Like, what I don't want to happen is for somebody to completely disagree with us and think that we're being too sensitive or whatever, and at least not willing to see our side, because I can see everyone's side.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because we're definitely not sitting here blaming people. Like we said, we're not blaming people for our experiences. I'm saying this one, for me at least, it's internally.
Yeah. Oh, man. Well, that was
fun. Yeah, that was hot. That was fun. I'm glad we got that out there. That was interesting to talk about, because I don't think we've ever talked about that other than with each other.
I know.
It's time, y'all, to get into some burning questions.
I love burning questions.
Okay, so this one, I'm going to ask Bianca first.
Okay.
I really want to know what you think of this, okay? How do you feel about losing friends after you've had kids?
Ooh, that's a good one.
This is something I feel like any mom has dealt with. So we've all been there. I feel like this is not just for moms. I feel like this also happens if you get married and you still don't have kids yet. But
So I think a lot of people can relate to this. I see this on social media a lot too. So for those that don't know, Annabelle was the first baby pretty much of like
friends and
any
family.
Friends or family, to be honest. First grandbaby, first everything. And I had her relatively young. I had Annabelle when I was like 23 or 24. Mm-hmm. And I do not talk to the same amount of people as I did before. Like a lot of the friends, especially like the friends I had within the military community, as soon as I got pregnant and had Annabelle, it was kind of just, we just didn't talk as much because they don't understand. But with like my other like closer friends that I knew from the beginning, I had a couple friends that, like Alejandra, for example, she was so consistent throughout everything. I mean, she was so consistent throughout my pregnancy, throughout having Annabelle. Still, she visited me just as much as she did before I had the baby or I got pregnant. So I had a couple friends that were super consistent still. But I feel like those friendships changed when they had kids.
Yeah.
And I think you can kind of maybe bring in a little bit of a different perspective as somebody who didn't have kids.
So
when I had Annabelle.
I've told you this before. Yeah, I didn't have kids for a while before when you had both girls by this point. So I will say this, and I've told you this before, I am 100% a different aunt than I was when I didn't have kids
100%.
and when I did have kids. I will say this. I used to think that when people used to post that stuff, or like when I started having kids, about like you lose friends and you feel bad because like they're out partying or they're out doing this or they're just not around anymore. And what I have to say to that is I get it.
Yeah.
You had kids and I had no kids and I was still just hanging out with my husband. Like, I don't think we lose friends because, oh my God, they have kids and I just can't hang out with them. I don't like kids. I don't think it's that. It's just
in different places of your
having
life.
A kid is like groundbreaking. Having a kid is so groundbreaking to your life that unless you have a child, you don't know what it's like.
Absolutely.
So it's hard for somebody who doesn't have children to appreciate someone who does have children or appreciate the struggle that it takes. I know I didn't. For me, it was just like, yeah, I can't hang out on Tuesday anymore for us to have wine. Okay, like no problem. And no ill will. I would be like, oh, yeah, you're taking care of the baby. No problem. Like, wouldn't even think about it. Not realizing like, hey, maybe you still do need to hang out. You can't drink wine, but you probably just need me to sit there with you. Yes, when you don't have children, you just don't understand. And I don't blame you.
And I feel like a lot of, I think that the idea of like what you just said of, maybe I should have instead of just like not making plans with her instead because she can't because she has the baby, maybe make plans that'll include her, then include the baby. Like, you know what? I'll go to your house and I'll bring the wine, and after the baby goes to bed, we'll fucking get fucked up or something.
And you know what?
I mean?
If you ever want to stay friends, you really just want to stay friends with your friend who's had a baby, I think my biggest advice would be to ask her what she needs, right? Like, I know it seems so one-sided, but you have no idea what somebody's going through when they first have a baby.
Gaining a new life in such a weird way. But then when your friends start to like leave, and you kind of mourn the loss of so many people when you have a baby, because so many people leave your life because they don't quite understand it. But then you also are trying to deal with being a new mom and trying to be a new mom and be a new wife. You know, how do I handle my marriage? Now I have this kid and I'm up all the time. I'm mentally exhausted.
So many changes.
And my friends are all gone. Like there's I don't know. It really bums me out when I see how people get completely just dropped from their friends.
What it bums me out, I think, is like the hate that person feels for the friend that is no longer there. I will say this may be like an unpopular opinion, but I don't think you can be mad at your friend who's single. And I say single as in with no children. When your friendship fizzles out. As much as you want to say like, but you should be there for me, like even if we can't hang out every day.
It's also not their responsibility.
Exactly.
I will rebuttal that though, because while I do agree with that, if they were a true friend and a good friend, they would be sensitive to your needs and your wants, and they would be, at least during the very beginning stages, I would have appreciated to know that just because I had a baby and I'm moving on with my life doesn't mean that I don't have a place in your life either. Because I feel like that was never a really true friend. I feel like a true friend.
But that's different. You're talking about like superficial friends. Because even like
I'm talking. You just said.
We're talking about just friends in general. I'm not talking about like.
I'm talking about friends in general.
No, I see, and I disagree. I think that like if someone's
if they were a good friend, they would be willing to be there for you through this time, whether that means. Even if that means you don't party together or do anything anymore, they would still to remain a part of your life because it's just what friends do. Okay, for example, obviously very different, but let's talk about like breakups or something, right? If your friend is going through a breakup and they don't want to go out and they don't want to do this, they just want to, you know how you feel, like you want to do nothing. You want to sulk in your sorrows for a little bit.
Absolutely.
How unfair would it have been for that friend to be like, you know what? I don't feel like sitting there sulking in your sorrows.
But that's totally temporary. That's two totally different situations because you're eventually going to get over your breakup and you may move on with somebody else or not, but a baby is permanent.
See, but we're
talking about like two different people though. Like the friends that you're going to lose forever because they just like that part of your life is now over and that's what you were friends for. Like,
but babies grow up and babies eventually, obviously not in the very beginning, in the first maybe year, they're really attached to you. But after that, like I was leaving the kids to go and do things and whatnot. Like, can they not be patient for a year until I figure out how to?
I think it's more than a year though. And even then your life still totally revolves around your kid.
It depends on the mom.
It depends on the mom too, having the same flow.
Let me stop you. Let me bring a perspective to you.
Okay.
Crystal and all of her group of friends.
Very different. Yeah, we all have kids.
They all had babies they were all pregnant at the exact same time. They all had boys the first time. They all had girls the second time.
Yep. Like,
I don't know. You know what it is?
But let me think. A single friend, right, that like doesn't have a true friend, right? If we're talking about true friends, no matter how true that friend is, unless we were saying the other day about how unless you got like just that person who's just so lucky who happens to also love kids, that is going to be there for you. But those people are very rare because some people can love you to death and just not like kids.
Yeah.
So they're only going to be around for the big events. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because
you know why I have a hard time. You know, we have two very different personalities, though. So, for example, like with I can say her name, right?
Yeah.
So, like with Alejandra, even though she didn't, our friendship never changed when I had Annabelle. Our friendship was consistent from before I even got pregnant to afterwards.
But that's just one person.
No, I know. I'm just saying, though. Like, so it's hard for me to sit there and be like, it's okay for you to just like drift off and forget about me when, you know what I mean? Like, I understand like you have your own life and obviously just because I have a kid doesn't mean you have to sit on the couch all day and do nothing while I nurse. But I still like, even when Alejandra had Lucas, like I remember we would go, Lucas was young and we left Ethan with Lucas, Ethan and Davian with Lucas and the girls, and me and her went to go get islands. Like I'm personally as a mom.
Yeah.
Because the type of mom I am more willing to like leave my kids to practice self-care.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
I'm not there yet.
You're not there yet, which is fine.
Totally.
But the way I see it is if you can like give me a year to like figure out this baby shit, like I'll be there, like I'll go out with you and go have dinners with you and do whatever. Just give me a year to like nurture my baby.
Perfect example of that. But can we be angry at somebody? Let's say we have a mom, like above anything else, they are a mother first. Yeah. Nothing else exists. How long can you expect somebody to be patient, no matter how great of a friend they are?
Well, then you're not being a good friend either if you're not.
Exactly. That's what I mean. We have to also look at what we bring to the table, what we're factoring in. Sometimes I'm not able to listen to your 20-hour rant about the boyfriend that you went back to for the 100th time and he did the same thing. Yeah. Because I have screaming babies in my ear. And can I be mad at her because I'm also no longer meeting her needs as a
see, whereas you have a mom who is completely, which you should be completely dedicated to, I'm not saying you're not, but like, for example, me again, I'm always willing to leave my kids to go hang out with anybody. Yeah. I mean, I know it sounds harsh, but it's true. Like, my parents know. They just had the kids all weekend for like the 4th weekend since Ethan's been gone. They like, can we have the kids? You don't gotta ask me twice. Like, bye. Like, but that's the thing too. Like, I'm willing to put in that relationship. Like, you know what's funny? Now that I think about it, 90% of my friends and the friends I've had in the past did not have kids, even after I had Annabelle.
Like, yeah, even like your friend Megan, still doesn't have any children.
Have kids. Michaela doesn't have kids, and Michaela and I went out all the time. Michaela and I went to go get drinks. We went to her house. She would meet me at lunch. So
you're doing your part in maintaining the friendship too.
But she was also very understanding. Yeah. And I couldn't do something because I had the kids.
We're talking about those women that just think that like, okay, well, I had a baby, so because I had a baby, like you now have to kind of like,
okay, now I don't agree with that.
You know what I mean? Like you also have to think about, are you being a good friend too? Because I'm not saying like, oh, you had a baby, you're a terrible friend, but like, yeah, some of us do get caught up in like being moms and like, and let's just be real. We've all had those conversations with people where we talked about our kids a little too much. And we didn't realize until afterwards, like, oh, I didn't bother asking them how they were doing.
Yeah. See, I think let's just wrap this up with this. Losing friends after you have kids is rough.
Normal and it's rough,
but it's normal.
The best you can give a mom is to just go over and let her know though. Let her know ahead of time. I promise you, if you text her, I don't give a shit what your house looks like. I don't give a shit if your friend is crying. I don't give a shit what you look like. I'm coming over. Let's watch some TV and watch our kids. Yeah. That is going to make their day, because half the time new moms are constantly worried about having company over because they're like, oh my God, please forget my house. It looks like a mess, or my kid's going to cry. If you tell them you don't care about anything like that, you're going to see how your friendship is going to flourish as well.
And just like on the other side, if you are a new mom and you feel like you're losing your friendships, I want you to do a little self-reflection too. Before we go and blame it on the people that they don't have kids, they don't understand, are you being a good friend to them?
Have you asked them how they're doing?
Have you sat there and had a conversation with them and asked them, hey, do you want to come over so we can talk about your marriage, your relationship problems? Yes. You being single. Let's talk. And go,
it takes two to make a thing go right.
I'm leaving that in there.
Edit that shit out.
No, thank you. But yeah, sorry that was so long-winded, you guys. We just got really passionate about it.
I know. But honestly, we gotta start throwing dukes over here.
This is literally like... This is we told you, this is no bullshit. We're not going to sugarcoat things. We're not going to do that. We really hope you guys enjoyed listening to us, ready to like freaking make our mark with our freaking argument. And we really hope you guys appreciate us.
Opening honestly, up to
giving you a raw insight
into who we are, into what we think,
and what we struggle with.
Yeah, absolutely.
I feel like a lot of people
kind to us too. Don't be coming at us.
I feel like people are.
Yeah, we're gonna be like, Chris,
y'all. We love all of you. Okay, everybody's great. Everybody's beautiful. We love life. We love you guys. Anyways, this is gonna be so long. Anyways, we hope you guys enjoyed learning a little bit more about us and whatnot. We hope you guys enjoy this. We will be coming back next week talking about resentment
when your spouse works a lot.
Yep, and I think this is a hot topic.
I love this.
We have two husbands with two very different careers, and I think it's really interesting. All right, guys, thank you so much for listening to our episode of Messy Buns Coffee Runs, and we'll see you on Monday.
Peace.
Fuck you, the music.